So, what did you guys think about like the idea of them going to like Japan and like trying to find like sanctuary, like on a boat?
Speak louder, please.
I thought it wasn't such a great idea because of how dangerous it was. They should have known before how dangerous it was.
Yeah, it says, I'm already going to throw out a quote, but it says on page 12, it's like, no doubt to this very day he was deeply troubled by the dilemma of his duty as a superior and the fate of the unfortunate persecuted Christians. So that's kind of showing how, like, the priests knew that, like, the journey was, like, dangerous, but if made, like, the outcome was even great. So he had the dilemma of, like, safety of his own people or, like, eternal safety for a lot of others. So
I'll throw out another quote to put on that. Yet God bestows upon a man a better fate than knowledge could possibly think or devise. So the people who were traveling to Japan, like, they may have thought this is a horrible idea. We're not going to get there. When we get there, we're not going to do what we're supposed to be doing. But, like, God has created what we're already supposed to be doing, and he has, like, a plan for you. So these people, in order for them to, like, trust God, I guess, because God has a better plan than what these people thought was going to happen. So
I think the book really like has a good point of view on things in terms of like the decisions that priests have to make at this time anyways, and it kind of shows their role in society a lot more than I thought, maybe because I used to think, oh, priests back in this time didn't really do much. They gave a little sermon and maybe nothing else, but they really had some hard dilemmas that they had to think through in terms of whether to send people to a very dangerous place and possibly lose them, but have the balances, I guess, to be equal.
I agree with that. Like, I didn't really think they did much either, but they really just had to trust in God, so they could send those people.
Do you think that every one of the people on the crew was like a Christian or like had like an experience as a like with a Christian or something that urged them to actually go on this trip? Because they could have like lost, they could lose their lives on this trip, like getting shot down by like a warship or getting like found out and then killed on mainland. But like, do you think that the crew, all the crew had somewhat of like a moving experience that would urge them to go on this trip?
well, like I said before, like, God has a plan for, like, all of those people. So even if they weren't sure, like, why they were going, like, I'm sure most of them were Christians. And even if they were, also I'm sure they had doubts on, like, why am I here? And this is, like, really dangerous. But, like, you have to trust God.
I personally think that like they kind of, this group of people anyways, really knew what they were getting into. I feel like it was definitely known that they were going into a dangerous area, and they were definitely trying to get something out of it, whether that be saving somebody, whether it be converting somebody, or whether for themselves they get to experience things that they may not have and had their eyes open. So I feel like all of them trusted in God to a certain degree when they went on the trip, just because it would be very hard to go somewhere dangerous if you didn't have a reason to go.
I think they were like the person that the Japanese guy that was with them, like Kichijiro.
Kichijiro. That's
Yeah, Kichijiro.
they used to. He comes up a lot.
I'll call him Peach for short. He, like, when they got there, they thought, they kind of had their doubts in him, maybe not, but, like, they definitely had doubts in him, like, is he just gonna leave us when he gets there? And then, like, when they were hiding in the bushes or whatever, like, waiting for the Christians to come find them and stuff, they were kind of, like, scared that, they just were kind of nervous that when they first got there, that, like, it wasn't gonna work out, and, like, they were gonna get, like, killed or something, but God kind of came in and, like, helped them because the Christians did find them and everything. But, like, I don't think they had as much doubt in God as they did just, like, the Kichi. Yeah.
I have a quote for that. It says, "But I was thinking of a more terrible fate. He had not fled like Judas, he had gone to betray us." So I thought it was interesting how they like compared Kichijiro, whatever, to Judas.
I think it was kind of interesting that like at the beginning when they thought that they were just gonna get betrayed, that when he started walking off to explore the woods, he was actually going to like the little village and like the little sanctuary over there to like get the people to bring them over, and like they thought that he like was going to like betray them when they saw like those two people and then Kichijiro with them. They thought that he was like he brought like guards over or something just to like bring them, but actually he brought people that were also Christians, and there's like a surprising amount of Christians on the island that like they were just surprised that he actually followed up with what he said, because he was already like known for like being a drunkard and like having no reputation already, so they were kind of putting their hands in, I mean their trust in someone who like didn't have much of like a reputation of being successful in like whatever they were doing.
So one of the quotes that I personally found interesting was he said at the very beginning of chapter 2 that like within the space of one short letter, I don't know how to speak about the innumerable events that have crowded into my life in the past 2 months. And it just kind of shows how chaotic their lives, even we as outsiders may not see it as that way, but being in a position to where things are being thrown at you a bunch, you just feel really crowded and that your life is being full. And he was writing that, like, in one short letter, he couldn't express what was going on in a short period of time just because there was so much stuff and so much writing, I guess, that he had to have been dealing with. So that was probably pretty hard on him. And then I also wanted to ask a question, which was, do you guys think it was good that he is doing these, or at least the first couple chapters, in like a letter format, as letters, instead of like a third-person kind of book? Do you think that was smart?
Before answering the question, how you said that they weren't really sure like what Kichijiro's thought process was and how they like put trust into him, even though he was like not a very trustworthy person. One of the first questions that the man had asked the people was if they were Christians. So he obviously had like the thought in his mind. So it was cool to see that they were like looking out for him and wondering why he wasn't a Christian. So it was kind of cool that like they were just using this man as like an outlet to get to Japan, but at the same time like something as small as that could also be like missionary work before they even got to the actual mission.
Yeah, it was talking about Kichijiro, and it says like he was like, perhaps whenever he speaks he has a dreadful fear of his own words, and so that was kind of saying like maybe like the environment he was previously in like damaged him to that point where like he was scared to even mention Christianity and stuff, and so they could have like, as you were saying, like started their mission work with him in the beginning before they even got there.
Like one of the quotes was, "Are you a Christian?" The question came from, is it Karape? Karape.
Yeah.
And the fellow suddenly shut up like a clam. It's just like you were saying, like these people are like just terrified just to be like have any sort of association with the Christians, because they know that the new like person, what was his name? Inu.
Are you talking about the big
It's
Inoue?
Yeah. And like they just didn't want to like, because the last person was already like really terrible and he had killed like a bunch of people for being Christians, but they didn't know like what they're like going up against with this new person, so they just didn't want to take their chances. what do you guys think when that who is it? That person anyway. Like when he had that vision and he saw like Jesus' face and like what he thought of it, like what do you guys think of that?
Can you give us a specific page reference there, Andrew? Just
Like
to
a-
help people track a little bit.
Oh, I think it's in chapter 2. 21, page 21, chapter 1 actually, sorry. Here, like what did the face of Christ look like? This point of the Bible passes over in silence. You know well that the early Christians thought of Christ as a shepherd. The short mantle, the small tunic, one hand is holding the foot of the lamb, while the other clasped a staff. This figure is familiar in our countries, for we see it reflected in many of the people whom we know. That is how the earliest Christians investigated the gentle face of Christ. And then in the Eastern Church, one finds a long nose and curly hair and a black beard. All this was creating an Oriental Christ. And then more towards the bottom of it, I saw this picture as a Sumerian for the first time. Christ had one foot on the sepulchre, and his right hand holds a crucifix. He is facing straight out, and his face bears the expression of encouragement it had when he commanded his disciples 3 times, "Feed my lambs, feed my lambs, feed my lambs." It is the face filled with vigor and strength. I feel great love for that face. I'm always fascinated by the face of Christ, just like the man facing it, fascinated by the face of his beloved. Like, what do you guys think of that paragraph?
I really like that paragraph a lot because it does kind of talk about like Jesus and what we see as his face and what others do, and how there's different images for Jesus in different parts of the world. And so it talks about like the Eastern Church and everything, and how he has a long nose and curly hair and black beard, where in the Middle East he's portrayed as looking very different. So I just kind of find that an interesting point that he had to bring up in the book.
Patrick, there was one question that you threw out there that kind of got sidetracked a little bit.
It was a question of like, do you think the format of the way he's kind of writing this book good in terms of that they're letters and like first person hands-on experiences, or do you think they should be more third person kind of written from his perspective afterward, like a lot of books?
I feel like you can't call these letters. Like it said in the book that like the person apologized for it being confusing because there are dates. Like this whole format is really confusing for me to like keep up with, because I'm like, wait, is this like the day before, or was this 2 weeks ago? Like it's really confusing. So I think dates would be helpful.
Yeah, that's true. And I am kind of confused on that because I feel like sometimes they're giving information into the book that I don't think they would have really written back towards them, like just the history of Japan and stuff that we were kind of seeing, or stuff that's happened previously. Like it says it's from the letter of Sebastian Rodriguez, which is like very true, I guess, but I don't know where it's like if it's modified at all, I guess. So that could be kind of helpful.
I don't really like the letter format because it's just like really out of context, because they're writing it to like a specific group of people, and they already know what's going on and like the history, and like just they know the full, like they're inside the context of the situation. But like being like a reader of the book, like you don't really understand like the the context of the situation, like what they're going through, what the boat's like, just like how everything is. Like you just can't really picture it.
Yeah, so the book, I guess the letters weren't meant for us, so we're having trouble interpreting it. But to another degree, it does have a sense of personality, I guess, that you wouldn't get from a third-person perspective, or even a first-person perspective of somebody looking back. It's very in-the-moment kind of thinking that he has, because he doesn't know what's going on in the future either, which is really, I do like that point of the book, but I do feel like they could have cleaned it up a bit more maybe. Giving us a context of who the letters are for would have helped.